First in the studio with me, it's first us, then Donald Trump, the Prime Minister. Mr Turnbull, good morning.
Good morning. So is Donald Trump coming on your show after me? Is he?
Well, if you can organise it, I'll be happy.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I'm seeing you first, and then later in the week, Donald Trump. That's
only,
right.
Only
that's
appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, obviously, the Barnaby Joyce situation. Do you really expect us to believe you went from a public slanging match on Friday to good mates on Saturday?
Well, the fact is we have a frank, forthright relationship. We work together. He's the leader of the National Party. I'm the leader of the Liberal Party. We're in coalition, and we work together.
Must still be tensions, though. I mean, he's called you inept. What's your definition of the word inept?
Oh, Neil, look, it's clearly a very stressful time for him. Obviously, it's an emotional time. I'm not going to get worked up about reactions, but it was very important for me on Thursday to speak from the heart, to speak frankly about what had happened, and most importantly, to demonstrate to Australians that I was going to do everything I can to ensure it doesn't happen again.
So no tensions between the two of you?
Look, it is I think we can say that this particular issue, as far as us personally, we've put whatever tensions there were behind us. We have to be very professional about the relationship and get on with it. There is not a issue or conflict between the Liberal Party and the National Party. And that I give you my assurance about that.
Well, it was on Friday. You've got to say that.
No, I think
Labor's running ads already on it.
Well, Labor, I think the real issue for Labor, and the real issue is one of values. Now, Australians know what my values are. I do not believe, in fact, I have made it very clear, it's more than belief, I've made it very clear that while I am Prime Minister, ministers must not have sexual relations with their staff. Bill Shorten hasn't endorsed that. So what is Bill Shorten saying? Is he saying that he wants to be Prime Minister so ministers can have sexual relations with their staff? Where does he stand on this? And that is well, you know,
questioning his morality.
I'm not questioning. No, I'm questioning whether he wants to support this particular rule. That is the question for him. Now, I think it is very clear that there has been a degree of greyness, moral ambiguity about issues like this, where people have felt, many people have felt, others have had different views, that these are private matters. And my point simply is, from the 15th of February, because of the change I've made to the Ministerial Code of Conduct, ministers must not have sexual relations with their staff. Full stop. So there's no longer any ambiguity, any greyness. It's not private, right? If you do that, then you should, and if you do that, then you should offer your resignation as a minister.
So would you sack somebody for doing it?
Oh yes, certainly, absolutely. Well, I'd expect them to resign. I wouldn't expect. I'd need to sack them.
Are you saying that it's happening on the Labor side?
I'm not. No, I'm not. Are you?
I don't know. Probably. It probably is. It's been happening in Canberra since day one, hasn't it?
Well, you were there in Billy McMahon's time. What was it happening then?
Yes.
Well, did you think it was a good idea then?
It must have been, didn't cross my mind. I was a young unmarried man.
Yeah, but you see, this is my point. For a very long time, I think people felt it was, or many people felt it was a private matter. There was a degree of ambiguity about it. Now, you know, I am not casting judgment on the days of Billy McMahon or previous prime ministers or eras. I'm simply making the point that from now on, there is no longer any ambiguity, and Australians know what my standard is, and I think they'll want to know, given Bill Shorten wants to be Prime Minister, what his standard would be. Now, so far, he has indicated he doesn't support the change, which surprises me. I thought he would say, yes, I agree, long overdue, about time. But apparently not.
Is Barnaby Joyce safe as leader?
What do you mean? Are you asking me whether he commands the support of a majority of members of the National Party?
Yep.
I don't know. That's that is he says he does, and others have said he does. But these are all matters in the gift of the National Party room, a party room, I might add, which I have never sought to influence in any way.
So you have absolutely no involvement in who is going to be your deputy?
In a coalition, that's right. That's right. The National Party chooses its leader, the Liberal Party chooses its leader.
Can you see any circumstance in this current mess that would cause him to step down?
I'm not going to speculate on that. I mean, these are a person's leadership of a political party is really determined, comes to an end, leaving aside death or misadventure. It comes to an end in two ways. Either the person resigns or their party room decides they want someone else to be the leader.
The speculation continues that he's insecure in the job. Does that unsettle the government?
Well, those are questions for commentators to answer, not for me.
Which I expect they're for leaders as well. If your government's rattled or unsettled by this, you need to sort it out.
Well, the leadership of the National Party can only be dealt with by the National Party. And as far as I'm concerned, I am focused on delivering on the strong economic growth, the jobs, 403,000 jobs last year, 100,000 of them in Victoria. 60% of them women, 75% of them full-time. We've seen very strong economic growth. We're seeing big investments in infrastructure. My job is to get on with growing the economy, creating more opportunity, supporting roads, railways, and all of that.
I'd like to get onto that in a moment, but Julie Bishop has said today it's all been distracting, and you have to agree this has harmed the government. I mean, Bill Shorten was dropping back a bit. You seem to be on a run. All those commentators said, Malcolm's on the way back. Now you've gone backwards. Thank you, Barnaby.
Are you thanking Barnaby?
Well, isn't that the reason?
But are you thanking Barnaby?
I'm asking you. That was a rhetorical question.
A rhetorical question. So,
do you blame Barnaby Joyce for the fact that the government's taken a step backwards?
Look, Neil, I know your goal, and I make no criticism of you for that. Is for me to, create some additional tension or new issue between me and Barnaby. Now we have had some words. I made some very strong comments on Thursday. I stand by all of them. They needed to be made. They did. Barnaby reacted to them, and now we move on and get on with good government. And I don't want to be
but you'd agree
adding to them.
As Julie Bishop's indicated, you'd agree the government's been harmed in the past few weeks.
Well, it's clearly she's right. It's distracting and it's unhelpful. But nobody said that politics, let alone being Prime Minister, is a particularly easy job. That wouldn't be very interesting if it was.
One of the questions, I've only got a couple more questions on this, but it is being raised that you did, you were aware.
We've gone for about 15 minutes. You're giving it a good, good thrash.
It's not just about sex. It's about style of government. It's about leadership.
Oh, come on, Neil. That's why you want to talk about it,
leadership.
Isn't it? But no, go on, please.
When did you first hear about his personal difficulty?
Well, Barnaby had no time said to me that he was in a sexual relationship with this woman, with this Vicky Campion. He never made that admission, I suppose, to me. Rumours. I cannot recall when I first heard a rumour about it. But probably, about the same time, possibly later than others. It is Parliament House, as you'd also know, and I imagine this was also the true in Billy McMahon's time, is full of rumours. But ultimately, ministers have the obligation to comply with the ministerial code of conduct.
So you didn't consider asking him?
I'm not going to go into the private discussions I've had with him other than to say that at no stage did he say to me that he was having a sexual relation with this lady.
I understand you won't go into the private discussions. I'm not asking for detail of them, but whether you raised it with him or whether this outrage is now because it's public.
Well, the circumstances, having, in my view, I've always taken this view about relations of this kind by ministers, but the fact is, I said, look, hang on, let me just...
You've known about it for months and you've got angry about it when it became public.
No, I want to be very clear about this, Neil. These relationships, in my view, I've always felt they're inappropriate. I know many have thought they are entirely private matters, and you can understand why relationships like that would be better off coming to an end privately.
But that doesn't answer this inconsistency. You knew about it for some time before addressing it.
No, that's an assumption. You're saying that I knew about it. It was not ever confirmed to me by Barnaby Joyce, and the only way you can, know that two people are in a sexual relationship, frankly, is if one or both of them confirm it. There are many, many rumours. There are many things that people claim to know.
You can ask.
I'm not going to go into the private discussions about it. But I can.
Prime, if you asked and you were misled, that's very important.
It's very important that it's very important.
You misled?
I'm not going to go into those discussions. It is very important, Neil.
Will you answer whether you were misled by your deputy?
I'm not going to go into those discussions, Neil, because it is very important that I am able to have confidential discussions with ministers.
That's true.
Often about sensitive matters, but I want to be very clear that at no time, and I've said this 3 or 4 times already, I've said it in the past, and it's true, and Barnaby Joyce has confirmed it, at no point did he say to me that he was having an affair with the woman in question. He took the view that it was entirely a private matter.
Fair enough. Do you trust him?
Yes, well, I do trust him. I think yes, I do, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
And final on this, have you spoken to his wife, Natalie Joyce?
No, I have not spoken to her about this, no.
You going to?
No, I know Lucy has contacted her, but I think it's not something I would directly contact Natalie. I mean, I know Natalie obviously, but I think that's yes. I think that's Luce has reached out, as have a lot of people, but
that's private between them.
These are very, very delicate and difficult matters, and you have to conduct yourself in a way that tries us to minimise or mitigate the pain that is already created.
Okay, George Christensen, his gun photograph aimed at the Greens, pretty stupid, don't you think? Do you feel lucky Green punks?
Well, it was very inappropriate, and it's been taken. He took it down, and after he was spoken to about it, there's been a referral to the Australian Federal Police. I checked on the way in, and I gather they are still evaluating the referral. So it's probably better.
Is that a waste of police time? I mean, it's a bad joke, it's a shocking joke. It's wrong. He shouldn't have done it. It's a silly thing to do. Is it police? He's not seriously suggesting they go out and shoot Greens, is he?
Well, again, I don't want to comment on. You wouldn't expect me to get into a commentary on something that is being looked at by the police. It was clearly inappropriate. I think we agree on that. And he's taken it down, but I'll let the police complete their evaluation.
You told me about a year ago wages had stagnated and would have to start to catch up. I noticed the pollies have had a pay rise since then. What hope for the average person?
I think the prospects are good because you're seeing stronger economic growth. You're seeing more demand for labour. And, as I've said many times, the laws of supply and demand have not been suspended. You're already seeing areas of skill shortages and labour shortages, and that obviously puts, pressure on wages, and employers have to pay more to get the employees they want. So I think as long as we can maintain strong economic growth, strong jobs growth, we'll start to see a stronger growth in wages.
Do you accept, as the Reserve Bank Governor said, 3.5% wouldn't be inflationary, a 3.5% increase in wages?
The well, I don't recall him pointing to that figure. The Reserve Bank's goal is to maintain inflation overall within the band of 2 to 3%. We like to see wages moving faster than inflation, but of course inflation's been very low at the moment. Wages are increasing overall, on average, just a little bit above inflation, and we'd all like to see them growing faster. And I think they will, given the stronger economic growth and demand for labour.
A question from the audience: Does Barnaby Joyce have an issue to answer on the spending of public money on accommodation and travel?
Well, ministers have to account for their spending of public money in every respect. Barnaby Joyce has given me an absolutely unequivocal assurance that he has complied with all of the requirements of the ministerial code and indeed the rules about entitlements and travel, and documented his returns and reports on that scrupulously. So if anyone believes he has not done that, then they should say, then they're entitled to say so and ask him to be accountable for it. Yes, but he's accountable for it.
When you see Donald Trump this week, will you be raising the asylum seeker resettlement? I think it was 1,200 initially. They've taken about 130. Will you be raising that with him?
Well, Neil, it will depend on the discussion, but there's really no need to. Trump is committed to honouring the agreement I entered into with President Obama. The processing by the Department of Homeland Security is progressing. I have every expectation that they will take the 1,250. Of course, they've got to be people that pass their security tests, but the agreement is they'll take up to 1,250. But as you can see, people are getting off Manus and Nauru, and it's a very good reminder to your listeners that it was the Labor Party, Kevin Rudd, that put those people on Manus and Nauru because they lost control of our borders, and we have stopped the boats, kept our borders secure, put the people smugglers out of business, and we are now moving these people off Manus and Nauru.
Sounds like a Tony Abbott slogan, that one. Very similar to his. Anyway, I read today. You don't appreciate that.
No, fine. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well,
but I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm sure.
I read today the US bases are building up in this country. Have they got an open check there or restriction?
What an open?
More Marines coming, more aircraft coming to Australian bases.
Well, we have a very strong, strongest possible alliance with the US. Our forces work together. We welcome more rotations of US Marines and other units into Australia and vice versa. It's our two...
So that's not on the agenda?
Our two defence forces work very, very closely. Of course security is on the agenda. It's on the agenda every time I talk to Donald Trump. Last time we met in Manila, we talked about regional security. We talked about North Korea at considerable length. So, keeping Australians and Americans safe is the first priority of an Australian Prime Minister and a US President.
I read it's hitting $1 billion in this country. Now, you're a former businessman and a lawyer. Is Airbnb a tax rort, do you think?
Sorry, you said, what is $1 billion?
Airbnb.
Is it?
Turnover.
Why is it a tax rort?
Well, because are they paying capital gains tax on the property that they're using to rent out? Are they paying income tax on the money they're making through Airbnb?
But who's they? These are the people that rent out their rooms.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Australians who rent out a room, whether to a lodger, whether it is on Airbnb or someone they meet somewhere, on the street who just looking for some space. They have to comply with Australian taxation law like everybody else. Taxes. We'd all like to see lower taxes, and that's part of our agenda. That's one of the reasons we're seeing the high jobs growth, because we have reduced taxes for small and medium businesses. But taxation is compulsory. We do not believe in a self-help approach to tax reform, Neil.
Thank you very much for coming in. I know you're green tea drinking. You tried kombucha?
No. Lucy is quite keen on it, but I'm not. I haven't tried it yet. Is it good?
I don't know. It's either a miracle or
is this why you're looking so amazingly youthful?
Not today. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, 96900 693 13 13 32.